What is up, and welcome to the latest edition of the Bruin Bible. Will Decker here, your host. I am joined by a guy I've been a fan of for a long time. It's the first time I get to meet him over a StreamYard link. It is my man, Sam Connon. He writes for SI's All Bruins out in Los Angeles. Sam, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Will. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, man. To get into today is the defense. Azzinaro finally out as the coordinator. I know that's a big plus for a lot of Bruins fans not having Jerry there anymore. We're going to talk about some of the guys potentially coming in there. You wrote a great article on All Bruins breaking down UCLA football's potential defensive coordinator candidates. We're going to kind of go into each one of those and kind of see where you want UCLA to head within that direction. I want to start with a guy that, for my money, is my favorite of the bunch. That guy's Jimmy Lake. And I know he's had his problems, with Washington, eventually got fired for some interaction with some of the players and some rumors going around. We did see that play against Oregon where he did push one of his linemen back, which was not appreciated. But I do know what this guy brings to the table in terms of being a defensive coordinator. He led multiple top 10 defenses at Washington, specifically in the secondary, which has been a huge problem for UCLA. Sam, give me your thoughts on Jimmy Lake and how much of a home run this would be for UCLA if they can overlook his problems.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. Like you said, it's overlooking the problems because when you look at the on the field stuff, I mean, what more do you want? You have a guy with head coaching experience, with Pac-12 ties, with ties to the West Coast when it comes to recruiting or just working with the personnel and having a base of assistants. There's a lot of good stuff going on there. And like you said, Washington from 2013 to maybe 2019 was the best defense in the Pac-12 pretty much every year. And he played a big part in that. So that is really promising when you look at him as a defensive coordinator option. Then when you start to dig into it a little deeper, you have the issues that you mentioned, pushing a player. There were another rumor or something about similar thing happening at practice. So that might be something that it would be difficult to convince administration and regents and everything in the UC system to hire someone like that. And I know Chip is someone who prides himself on running a very clean program. So to kind of, it would be a bit messy in that front. And then would he go from being a head coach to a coordinator in 1 year? Maybe he takes a year off and takes a coordinator job next year, but with his personality and ego, would he be okay taking a step back, a salary reduction, or is he someone who's looking for a head coaching job next year? There's a lot of different elements at play there, but in terms of what Jimmy Lake could do with the personnel that UCLA has on defense, home run hire if it could happen.
Totally agree. And you just look at some of the players he's been able to put into the pros. Marcus Peters, Sidney Jones, Kevin King, Budda Baker, Byron Murphy. These are all secondary guys. And you ask any UCLA fan, our pass defense has been atrocious these past few years. Part of that's going to that 4-5-2 scheme that we have. And, it's a tough thing, but I think if we can get a guy in there that not only checks the box secondary wise, but helps with recruiting, which, I think Chip puts a lot of his energy recruiting wise into the transfer portal. This would be a home run hire if we can overlook those, allegations as we were talking about. Is he your number one choice when it comes to the defensive coordinator position?
I would probably say, yeah. In terms of looking to maximize the number of wins in 2022 and 23, he's the guy you go after. He's the number one option if you're trying to win now at all costs and just go all in and get someone who was probably a better recruiter when he was a coordinator than he was as a head coach, but still has that prowess. He's been a leader of a Pac-12 program, and you bring him in and it just adds a certain it just makes the program look official and complete when you have a head coach with Pac-12 and NFL experience, a coordinator with that kind of experience, position coaches who have been in the NFL, which we'll get to later. But bringing someone in like Jimmy Lake would definitely add a lot of prestige to this program, I think.
And a common theme with a lot of these guys is recruits want to come in, especially for Power 5 recruits. They want to do what it takes to get to that next level. So having that ability to show recruits, hey, I've gotten them to this level. You got to follow what I want to do. But if you are willing to achieve those, I can get you to the NFL. That is a huge thing for recruits coming in. And, that's another thing that I want to talk about with Clancy Pendergrass potentially. I know it's come out saying that he may not be the guy for the role, but when you look at the coaching experience this guy has, I mean, just big-time jobs. We're talking the Dallas Cowboys. We're talking USC, Oklahoma, 49ers he even had a stint at. These are big jobs, and he's been around the NFL, probably has connections at that next level for potential players that come in, and, maybe he can help some guys get drafted. I know he's been an analyst on the defensive side of the football. What would your thoughts be if, hypothetically, Clancy Pendergrass was announced as the next defensive coordinator for UCLA?
I think it'd be a little conflicted because how a lot of other guys on the staff have Pac-12 and NFL ties, and you look at that as a good thing. That really seems like it's the only thing that he has going for him in terms of being a candidate. And yeah, with experience comes, he can be a good defensive play caller, but the way things went with him at USC, the way they kind of tailed off, I mean, if you're not good enough to be on Clay Helton's staff, I don't know why you're good enough to be on this staff. And I think a lot of fans feel the same way. It's just would be a weird situation. It's okay to have a guy like that on the staff when it comes to just being a voice and giving an extra set of eyes. And Chip has talked in the past towards the end of the season about how beneficial it was to have him on the staff and help the offense even. With picking apart opposing defenses, that's really helpful, having that kind of knowledge from different programs, from different levels. But in terms of his most recent success or lack thereof as a defensive coordinator, it would not be the biggest, best hire they could make.
I agree with that. I think having him as an analyst, it's a guy you want to be around the scene, but making him the guy, I don't know. He's proven recently that may not be the title that he deserves. Another guy we were high on was Gary Patterson. Obviously, he's going to the University of Texas. He will not be in consideration. But the wild card of the bunch that you ruled out there that I really enjoyed was TJ Rushing. And, I've done my deep dive on him. He had kind of some tough stints when he was at Arizona State and Memphis in terms of being the defensive backs coach before he became, the one at Texas A&M. From 2017 to 2019 and stops at Arizona State and Memphis, he ranked 103rd, 99th, and 103rd, respectively, for those years. But once he went to Texas A&M, he was 29th in 2020 and 32nd in 2021 in passing defense for the Aggies. Granted, there's a lot more talent there, but you're also playing SEC offenses when you're at Texas A&M. Give me kind of the thought process that led you to put TJ Rushing there. And do you think he would be a credible candidate to reach out to if all else fails?
I think he's an interesting option. Definitely a dark horse, not someone that a lot of people have thrown a name out or anything. But he played in the Pac-12, played at Stanford. He's coached at Arizona State before. So he knows the West Coast. He knows the conference. And then the success at Texas A&M is huge. He is one of the bigger up-and-coming position coaches on defense in the country just because of how big of a spot that is in the SEC, coaching that secondary, recruiting really well in Texas, but then also in different areas of the country as well. He has grown from kind of wavering a little bit at Arizona State and Memphis to really taking command as a recruiter and an on-the-field presence at Texas A&M. He almost took a job at Florida State before he went to Texas A&M. So he is definitely someone who has been in demand in the past, and it won't be very long before he takes another step or two up and takes a defensive coordinator job. Is he ready right now? Maybe not. And maybe that's not someone that Chip wants to go for if he is on this prove it contract where he needs to win now. Maybe he can't take a gamble on an inexperienced defensive coordinator. But if that's the route he chooses to go down, I think that'd be a really interesting option and a good long-term plan if they kind of set the right things in motion.
I like it, man. It really piqued my interest when I saw that in the article. I think he would be a credible candidate moving forward. And, the main topic I had with Jimmy Lake was secondary. Let's fix that problem because everything else is pretty good. You get a guy like TJ Rushing in there who's done the work, and we've seen the stats backing that up. That's a home run hire, in my opinion, for Chip Kelly. So I like it. Was there any other guys you were thinking of that could potentially be defensive candidate worthy, defensive coordinator worthy for UCLA? Because, I'm struggling to find names out there that are more than the ones that you were discussing in the article.
Yeah, I mean, just another one of the names I put out there, which a lot of people have been bringing up, is Brian Norwood, because he came on before the 2020 season, kind of implemented that 4-2-5 scheme. That's his system, pretty much, that he brought over from Navy. He's been a FBS co-defensive coordinator, a defensive coordinator in the past, so he has enough experience. Not any great defenses he's had in the past, but he knows Chip Kelly. He knows the system. It's his scheme. So maybe if Chip wants some continuity, some familiarity, that's an option to go down. I know a name that has been brought up and maybe has been kind of thrown out the window now that the 49ers had a successful run in the playoffs. Didn't go to the Super Bowl, but D'Amico Ryans possibly. Whoa. Yeah, there was some rumbling about that earlier on in the playoffs, but the fact that they picked up a few wins means that, I mean, he's getting head coaching interviews in the NFL at this point, so that's probably out the window. But, I mean, Chip Kelly knew him from when they were both at the Eagles together. They had a good relationship. That's another dark horse, but it seems that kind of has sailed a little bit. And then I think the biggest thing, they're just going to take their time. Chip Kelly's going to take his time with this hire. Probably the deadline is the start of spring practice, which UCLA usually has mid-late March, or if they did it like they did last year, I think it was more like late April. But we'll see what they end up doing with their schedule and how that impacts the defensive coordinator hiring timeline too.
Yeah, I think with Norwood, I would just feel like we're getting a lot of the same elements of Azzinaro. And I know he probably will be considered just because he's, been in the mix. He knows Chip on a first, name basis. They work together very closely, but it's just banking on, the run defense was great. We had success with that. It's that back end. That's the problem. That's still not going to change. I feel like if Norwood comes there. D'Amico Ryans one was a shocker to me. That's crazy that was even, rumored. I'm a 49ers fan. I am crushed after that loss last night. But D'Amico Ryans, like you said, man, this guy is one of the top defensive coordinators in the NFL. If the Bruins could somehow get that guy in the building, that would be even bigger than Jimmy Lake, in my opinion, given the success that he's had and what he can potentially mold this defense into at UCLA. Those are all good candidates. I'm hoping for Lake. I'm hoping for Rushing. If we can get one of those guys, I think that would be right in UCLA's kind of wheelhouse in terms of having success directly in the future. I want to talk about the offensive line coach that we just got, Tim Drevno. He's been around, even the Pac-12. He was at USC. He's been to Michigan, was at the 49ers beforehand. This is a guy that comes in and really does a solid job of replacing Justin Fry, who, for my money, was going to be a tough guy to replace. I think he's done a really good job with the offensive line. And if you don't take my word for it, I mean, Ohio State got this guy. They want this guy as their offensive line coach. That's a top 5 program within the country, any way you spin it. Give me your thoughts on Tim Drevno coming to the Bruins, because I thought this was as good as they could possibly get given the loss of Fry.
Yeah, I think Fry was always going to be a tough guy to replace. And Drevno is definitely a safe replacement. It's a solid contact hit kind of thing, where you're not swinging for the fences and getting some like big name guy. There's not too many of those out there at offensive line coach, but I mean, Drevno, like you said, he has experience with the Niners, with Michigan, with USC, as a co-offensive coordinator, as an offensive line coach. So this guy has come from the Jim Harbaugh tree and now he was an analyst with Chip Kelly last year. So he knows this system. He knows how Big Ten programs run. He knows how the NFL runs. That's a good kind of personnel kind of guy to have around, that I'm sure a lot of the guys in that room like being coached by an NFL guy with NFL connections, like you were talking about earlier. I think it'll be interesting to see how his scheme gets implemented, because I think Justin Fry really helped a lot in kind of taking Chip Kelly's offense from what it was in 2018 to what it was in 2021 in terms of the offensive linemen pulling, like multiple offensive linemen switching sides and just really being dynamic with that. I think you're losing that with Fry out the door, but Chip Kelly, I think, has kind of absorbed that into his offensive playbook and everything, that you're still going to see some of that with Fry gone. And now it's just, can Drevno run it the same kind of way? Can he coach these guys up the same way as Fry? And I think he has the potential to do that.
Definitely. And he did a good job at SC. You know, we're Bruins fans here, but he did a good job at SC. Elijah Vera Tucker, first round pick. Austin Jackson, first round pick. He was a key part in molding Taylor Lewan at Michigan, who has been a left tackle in the NFL almost a decade now, you know, and even with the 49ers, Joe Staley, Mike Iupati, those are guys that made all-pro teams because of Tim Drevno. So this is a guy that has the experience and can take these guys to the next level. Like you're saying, the way that Justin Fry was able to coach up the bookend tackles we had, Alec Anderson, Sean Ryan, those are guys that are going to have their names called on draft night. That's a tough guy to lose. But if you're going to have a consolation prize for Fry, might as well be a guy like Tim Drevno, who has the experience and the credibility to come in there and kind of keep a similar looking offensive line unit come 2022. We got to do it, Sam. I know this is a rumor going around, and it may be a slight chance that this does end up happening. But according to 24/7 Sports today, Caleb Williams still has UCLA on the table. They have been in contact as recently as Sunday. 0 to 100% chance. Where do you rank the likelihood of Caleb Williams playing for the Bruins next year?
It's probably like a 0.001% or something. I just don't see how it could logistically happen. I don't know what the reason is behind these reports and leaks and rumors and stuff. I'm not saying they're false. It's just, it's hard to piece things together. Like, why would Caleb Williams want to come to UCLA over USC or Wisconsin? And if he doesn't, then why would anyone in his camp, in his circle, want this out there? Because clearly someone wants this out there. Someone is some source is giving this to reporters. So either it's true or it's false and they're putting it out there for a reason. And neither side seems to make sense to me. I don't know. It's not like they're trying to get UCLA involved in like an NIL bidding war. That's not really where the program is at right now. So there's a lot of question marks. It's very weird. DTR is the quarterback for this team in 2022, obviously, which makes it sound weird that UCLA is still in contact, but maybe Chip is in contact with him and the staff is in contact with him, thinking, well, if he wants to sit on the bench for a year and then be our quarterback, then by all means, if you want to, Caleb, sure, come on down. I don't know why he would want to do that, but it'd be interesting. He's only going to be a sophomore next year. He's got plenty of eligibility left, but he's the kind of guy where if he goes somewhere, he's going there to start. And I mean, he's better than DTR. Maybe he's not right away, but it doesn't seem like Chip would want to replace DTR right after he announced he was coming back.
In the words of Dumb and Dumber, you're saying there's a chance.
Barely. Only because nothing's impossible, but this is as close as it gets.
I agree. The likelihood is very slim to none. Maybe a 2% chance is kind of where I'm leaning towards, 3%, because he's got to choose between those schools. But if I were to make a case why Caleb Williams should come to UCLA, SC, Lincoln Riley just bailed on you. Why do you want to go back to that? He could do the same thing in a year or two if an NFL job comes calling, right? I think that's something like I wouldn't want to follow a coach that just bailed on me and my teammates to a different place. And with Wisconsin, great program. You know, I think they're like a tier below those like elite programs. They're a very solid program, not great. Who wants to be in Wisconsin in December? You know, come to UCLA, man. We got the best weather. We're in Westwood, California, which you can't beat. Los Angeles is the place to be, and you can run a Chip Kelly offense that led the Pac-12 in scoring. Granted, it's unlikely, but we can dream that Caleb Williams will be a UCLA Bruin. Sam, I've got one last question for you. Without looking at the schedule and with DTR coming back, as well as Charbonnet, who was the most shocking comeback for UCLA football in recent memory for me, given what he was supposed to be in the draft. Without looking at the schedule, what is your win total projection for UCLA next year? through 12 games?
I think initially, if you had asked me at the end of December when Sean Ryan was going, it was looking like, or Alec Anderson had said he's going, it looked like Sean Ryan was too, and Dulcich and Phillips started going at the beginning of January, and you assume that Charbonnet and DTR are going. I was definitely on the lower end. I know the non-conference is easy, but I probably would have said, I don't know, 7 wins or something. But you get DTR back, you get Charbonnet back.
Yeah.
Chip add some interesting pieces to his staff. And then with all of that, I say, okay, maybe, yeah, you can definitely get 8 wins, maybe 9. I think the interesting thing, because the hesitation for me was always the defense, as it has been the past few years, and how many guys you were losing. You lose Quentin Lake and Quantrez Knight and Daytona Jackson, Otito Bonia, Jordan Jemark Heath, now Obi Ebo, Cam Johnson, Jay Shaw, all these guys gone. Well, in the transfer portal, you just got 2 interior guys to replace Ogbonia and Daytona Jackson, in Jacob Sykes and Gary Smith from Duke. So, well, you plug those holes, and you lose Jemark Heath, but you replace him with Masao from Hawaii. There you go. So now it's just plugging holes in the secondary with the transfer portal, and they've proven to have been able to do that in the past. I mean, Q Knight, he was a transfer. Ebo, Cam Johnson, they were all transfers. So you get Azizi Hearn from Wyoming. You slowly build out this defense, and maybe by the end of spring practice, it's looking better than it was last year, going against an easier schedule. I somehow have talked myself into expecting 9 or 10 wins now from this team that a few weeks ago I thought would get 7. So it's been an interesting month for this team in terms of the outlook for 2022. But there's definitely reason for optimism for sure.
I definitely agree, man. I think given the out-of-conference schedule, we're playing 3 kind of cakewalk opponents. I don't want to, dismiss them from that game, but games that UCLA should win, I think that's reasonable to go 3-0 to start. Could we win 6 games within conference? I think so. We've seen this jump from quarterbacks that have come back for that extra year, not to compare their games, but, Joe Burrow had a big 5th year. Baker Mayfield had a big 5th year. Kenny Pickett for Pittsburgh had a big year in his 5th year. That extra year has kind of gotten players to another level when they've come back. And I think Dorian Thompson-Robinson is as talented, as what some of those guys are, could make that jump in year 5 to a star within the Pac-12. Charbonnet is the big puzzle piece for me. I think he's the best running back in the Pac-12 last year. Getting him back again is going to make a huge difference for UCLA. You have that, continuality, so to speak, of those guys coming back. So for me, I think 9-10 wins is very much in the ballpark. And Sam, I just want to thank you so much for coming on the Bruin Bible, man. We love having you on. Catch his work at SI Bruins. It's All Bruins at Sports Illustrated. It's very good stuff. If you're looking for Bruin content, he's the guy to go to. Much love, my man. Thank you for coming on.
Of course, Will. Thanks for having me.